It's obviously a very, very sad story here. We've been covering this. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, so I'm going to read a letter that the OceanGate Expeditions Twitter account sent out earlier. We're not going to read the whole thing, but I think the first line is certainly worth repeating, given it has the names of all the people who lost their lives. They wrote, "We now believe that our CEO, Stockton Rush, Shazda Dawood, and his son, Suleiman Dawood, Harish Harding, and Paul Henry... Hamish
Harding.
Hamish Harding, that's my mistake. And Paul Hardy Nargalet have sadly been lost." So they go on to say that these men were explorers who had a spirit of adventure. This is, of course, a very sad story, and I think that we should try to keep reverence while discussing it. A lot of people on Twitter have been laughing at the fact that these people died because they're wealthy, and we discussed that a little bit on last night's show, so we probably don't have to retread that territory. But I want to open it up to you guys. What do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about the fact that the Navy says that they heard or detected that there was a hull implosion several days ago and didn't say anything until now?
Hull implosion.
Yes.
Because when I first heard you, I thought you said whole implosion.
No.
And that
Hull,
would have been...
Yeah. I'm not sure what that would even mean.
No, because a hull is...
A complete implosion.
Hull, like a complete... The hull cracked, and they found debris, I think, about a third of a mile from the wreckage of the Titanic, so...
The Wall Street Journal is reporting that this U.S. Navy technology that's used to find enemy submarines picked up on what they now believe was this implosion around the area where debris was now found.
And doesn't that answer the big question to at least one possible non-conspiratorial answer to the big question everyone's asking? Now believe. Now we found the debris. Now we know what that weird noise was.
That's true.
Well, this is something we were talking about a little bit before the show, but there's something curious about the fact that they waited to release this information until after it was already made public that the debris had been found. And so people have been speculating about why that's the case. I can understand why they might not say anything, because it's possible they didn't know initially what the noise actually was. And now that the debris has been found, they can confirm that it actually was the submersible imploding. And they would probably have some concern about dissuading rescuers from making attempts by telling them, we heard something that very well could have been this craft being destroyed by the water pressure.
Or releasing information through the media when really these people have families who probably want some dignity and some privacy while they learn possibly that they've lost, family members.
So the Navy is claiming that I think it was the Navy, is that who it is, they detected the implosion on Sunday or shortly after they lost contact, I think maybe on Sunday. And then they let a global initiative to search and rescue go on without telling people, hey, wait a minute. Maybe because they found, so I'm having a problem with this. It's a very emotional story. There's 5 people dead, which is, and their families and God. But I haven't seen the debris. I don't trust the news. If they're going to tell me that this thing, they know now it imploded, they're very almost sure that it imploded and they found the wreckage. Like, show me the evidence, man. I don't buy it. I don't buy this. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why this was mainstream
It's like you
news.
don't believe the government.
Yeah,
or something.
how weird
I don't
that
understand that. What is this?
There's
What is this that I've been invited to?
Crazy corruption scandals about the president's son, but all of a sudden this new piece of pop news takes over and they're trying to shove it down my throat for 5 days.
So I'm curious, what do you think happened here then if you don't believe that this craft was actually destroyed by the water pressure or faulty construction?
For all I know, it's still down there, and they all died a really horrible, slow death, and they don't want to put that in the news.
What do you think their motivation would be for wanting to keep that out? They want
to raise morale. They want to be like, they all died painless, because I saw Mike Cernovich tweeted out, they all had a painless death. Don't worry about it. Everything's okay.
I remember they said that about the space shuttle. And
the Challenger
was a lie.
Yeah. That's interesting that they would lie about something like that.
What happened with the Challenger?
They had a voice recording of the last minute, because it started getting hot in there. It didn't just break up. It started getting hot in there. I'd rather not talk about it. We've had enough awful, you don't have to dredge up awful news from 35 years ago. It was, or whatever the hell it was.
Sure.
1984. I think it was, no, it was 1986. 86? I was in second grade. Well, I think it was 86.
Hannah Claire, you made this point earlier about dignity, the fact that people had died, that they lost their loved ones, and there's a media fiasco around this. it's an interesting exploration because we want to look at these issues. We want to know what's happening in the world. And it's good that people were rooting for these individuals to live. The public, at least the pro-social segment of the public, who aren't just completely out of their minds and would celebrate the death of somebody simply because they're wealthy. We're rooting for this family. But I think you're onto something with what you're saying about the fact that there's a level of sensitivity that needs to be considered here. And it goes beyond simply saying, I acknowledge something horrible happened here. There's an element of discretion that is necessary.
Yeah, it reminds me of, and I'm loath to bring up a completely different political point, but when Biden withdrew troops from Afghanistan, right, we lost 13 Marines. Would you want those Marines' names to be released in the media, or would you want their parents to have a chance to hear it first, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing we're all outraged by tragedy, or we want to know what the end of this submarine saga is. On the other hand, real people have lost, and there has to be a slight time delay to deliver that information. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily the case here. Like we're saying, if the Navy picked up on some kind of sound, what is it going to do? Say, we think we heard something, but we're not sure, but maybe? Like, it doesn't necessarily serve. There's no reason to believe they didn't deliver that information to the powers that need to be, the Coast Guard, whoever's searching. Yeah. Again, I agree with Ian here. You have to remain a little bit skeptical. I think what we're seeing a little bit now is the question of why did we finally get this information today, that there is debris, that we don't think that there was an implosion, and what else is going on in the news media that would indicate this. This morning, the news alerts I was getting were saying, today is the last day that they would have oxygen. So there is a reason why this sort of hit its crescendo today. We knew after today, if they weren't found, things were bleak no matter what.
Well, I'll also say this. We know, and based on what you were pointing out earlier about the Challenger mission and the catastrophe there, that the media has covered up for organizations to make the fact that people died horrible deaths seem less tragic by claiming it happened quickly and painlessly. However, I will say one key difference is the media might have some desire or motivation to cover for NASA, whereas I'm not sure what the motive would be to cover up for this small organization that doesn't really seem to have any connections to state or media powers.
Especially when usually I feel like the federal government is very against independent exploration, right? I mean, this was all Elon Musk and Richard Branson's efforts to get to space. I don't think the federal government necessarily was rooting them on. They see that as their right and their exclusive territory. Yes. Again, private exploration of the sea, I think we stopped thinking about it because we became focused on space, but I'm sure there are reasons that people want to plunge to the depths of the ocean and see what's there. It really is a world unknown to us. Yep. And I don't think necessarily these people who have the money to do so were wrong for taking that risk. It's just an incredibly sad situation. I think it's hard to see these videos on TikTok or Reels or wherever where people are kind of laughing at it because you want to remind yourself that like, these are people who died and someone is grieving them. And
I'll mention this. I think you're correct in saying that when it comes to exploration of parts of the world that are currently uncharted, there is a nobility in wanting to take that venture on. However, in the coming days or weeks, there are going to have to be some questions asked about the particular risks that OceanGate took in their construction of this vehicle and placing people on it and whether this was the best constructed craft, because there's been a lot of discussion about that, but maybe now is not the time.
I heard there was a waiver they signed, someone on Twitter, and this is all anecdotal, I don't have the tweet, but they said that they had ridden with OceanGate a year ago and to the Titanic actually and back, and they'd signed a waiver, and on the front page it was like, you waive just in case you die, and it said death 3 times on the front page. Could be hyperbolic, but they were pretty much like, I think maybe these people.
So I actually heard. So my friend, legal mindset, Andrew Esquire, YouTuber, did a very good video that I think he posted 12 hours ago today, addressing potential legal issues that are raised by this tragedy, and going to your point again. Because of, I think, what is generally a government hostility towards any kind of independence, and certainly big independence like this, he seemed to suggest that this is going to provide an impetus for more regulation. But I'm surprised that he said that, because the first thing he said in his video, and I think the video is great, is that there's a jurisdictional issue here. This is international waters, and part of the reason there is so little regulation is precisely because of the lack of a regulating and enforcing authority. So the fact that many countries, everyone knows that in the world of sailing, the nautical world is, if you have any familiarity at all with cruise lines, they're notoriously unregulated. They are scandalously unregulated. Everyone knows there's a problem. Everyone knows a certain number of passengers disappear, are killed, are robbed, are thrown overboard, and there is no accountability. The fact that we know that these things happen doesn't make them solved. They're not solved. So I don't know if this, but there is some one of the things that Andrew did point out was that you can sign a waiver, you can waive all kinds of things, but you can't, there's a level of negligence, of gross negligence, that you cannot waive away. By virtue of signing a waiver, that doesn't give you permission. Okay, now I can come into your treehouse. Great, welcome aboard, Ron. I'm going to shoot you in the head. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So there will be lawyers looking very hard at this.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.